IVM. There's always a particular taste, food, culture, and how a spirit is a part of that. There is no Nike, Adidas, Reebok in the world of spirits.
Right.
The local spirits actually have the largest share of sales in any part of the world. You know, when you think about these imported brands, they've sort of made their way across the world, but that doesn't mean that they are the largest selling.
Did you know that the name of the beverage Punch originated from the Sanskrit word Panch, referring to the 5 ingredients that go into it? Or that most whiskies in India are designed to taste like rum to suit the Indian palate, to a point that most other countries would actually classify the chemical composition of the Indian whiskey as just rum. The Indian alcohol industry is filled with great stories and trivia like this. Our alcohol advertising history is equally colorful, from Shatrughan Sinha drinking Bagpiper to Royal Stag's large short films. To talk about all this, we have a proper insider, someone who belongs to a family that has created and marketed multiple alcohol brands in the country, and someone who's also an entrepreneur today, running an agency that helps market some of the most respected alcohol brands in the world. When you and I were looking for internships after college, she spent time in the most shadiest and luxurious bars in the country. What was she doing? Understanding the Indian consumer and analyzing the reason as to why he or she wants to get high. Welcome to the show, Pushpanjali Banerjee, Marketing Director of the Kindle Group and founder of the agency Tali.
Hi.
So I wanted to start with a question that's been bothering me for a fairly long time, which is, does alcohol marketing really work? Or how well does alcohol marketing work? I'll give you an instance before you jump into the answer. I think about a year back, I saw my first bottle of Monkey Shoulder in a friend's place. I had not seen that brand until then. And then, I really liked the brand. I made a mental note that whenever I'm in a duty-free next, I should get it. But of course, I wasn't finding it anywhere for a while. Cut to 5-6 months back, I'm seeing it in more friends' place. And then I'm seeing people talk about it. And the next thing I know, every duty-free, every mall in town, everybody is stocking up on Monkey Shoulder. It's the new big trend in whiskey, right? Now, I have never seen an ad or any promotion of any sort for this brand, right? But that's how it makes its way into someone's bar, right? How do you want to compete with that? And what is the role of alcohol marketing, and does it work?
So, very interesting question, Karthik. I quite like Monkey Shoulder myself, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I think alcohol marketing definitely works. And I think marketing as a whole is now more about going back to the product and engineering a product that is worthy of being noticed. If you see Monkey Shoulder, it's a very unique product. It's a blend of single malts. If you've noticed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it's very well, the palate is such that it's very, it's got very easy drinkability. And it's very tasty. I mean, let me just put it like that. It's not exactly a very difficult drink to wrap around. Also, how you encounter a product. So first is making the product itself something that would appeal to a particular audience has become very important. I think putting a vanilla sort of product in the market no longer works because you're not going to expect any point of view, or that product is virtually going to be invisible. It's just going to become like a commodity. So it has to be something unique. It has to be something quality. And then what channels are used to distribute it? What sort of people are engaged to talk about it? So Monkey Shoulder has basically done massive programs with bartenders around the world. Yes.
Oh, wow.
They've done bartending competitions. They've done bartender trainings. They've done consumer sort of tastings and sessions. And they've basically managed to engage with people who they think are their TG, who's a very specific group. And like you said, you encountered the product at your friend's bar. Now, your friend was the kind of person that Monkey Shoulder managed to leave an impact on. And that impact is something that has to be planned.
No, I get what you're saying, but let me rephrase my question.
Yeah.
Right? And I think, by the way, I love the name monkey shoulder, and then I looked it up. I think it means almost a sort of a medical condition you get by
distilling
sweeping,
and then
distilling.
in the making of whiskey. Yeah.
So the people who are actually sweeping the malt,
Correct.
it's a kind of condition they develop on their shoulders. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I found it fascinating, and like you rightly said, I found the taste fascinating as well. But my question was more in terms of, today when I make a purchase decision on which alcohol brand to buy,
Yeah.
I'm probably going on word of mouth mostly.
Yeah.
Or I'm probably going with what my history has been with alcohol, which are the brands that I loved
Right.
as a youngster, and then later in the years, what are the moments which I loved with these
Correct.
brands, etc. Right?
Correct.
So somewhere, if we were to build a brand today, which is purely on surrogate marketing,
Right.
whether it is standing for something good,
Right.
or standing for responsible leadership,
Right.
or just standing for being a responsible citizen per se. Right?
Yeah.
Somewhere I'm just wondering if these communications, and you're an alcohol, you're a marketer yourself.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if these communications work as well as they do in other categories.
Right.
And is there a great example? What are you a fan of when it comes to alcohol marketing?
See, I think, there are a lot of campaigns that I've loved, when it comes to alcohol marketing. And the best kind of campaign is one which is absolutely true to the heart of the product and heart of the brand. One of my favorite campaigns would be Absolute. And the kind of work that they've done, especially in the 1980s, where there was a solid brand purpose and it was standing behind sort of promoting the underdog. It gave a platform for talent, from all around the world. They were
So what was their positioning in the 80s?
So it was iconic. It was an iconic. Absolute was about art, about everything which was art, music, culture,
Right.
Everything that was iconic was like Absolutish. And it was very mysterious. It was all about the shape. It was never about the product name, being, it was never an obvious thing. It was either you were in the know or you were not.
Right.
And that sort of thing works really well because it's very close to a particular community. It's not talking to everyone, which has become even more important now, given the age of internet and the kind of media we're all consuming, the micro communities which are sort of developing. Everybody's consuming content independently. You're not watching things together anymore. You're watching things that
Right.
you really want to watch, which are shaping you and your taste and your choice. So it's very important for brands to take a very relevant stand,
Right.
and have a purpose that works and, create activations around that. This is very famous, Absolute.
Sorry, before you go
Yeah.
forward, so you're saying that these qualities about what this brand stands for,
Yeah.
you're saying they're also integral to the product itself.
Correct.
Right? So in a way, Absolute is this mysterious kind
It
of
was.
a taste. Is that where it stems
was
from?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like how you hold a brand dear. It's a lot about what is the conversation that it drives. What are the kind of people who are drinking it? What are the kind of, whether you're hot or it's like slightly passé. It all depends on what sort of communication. Like you said, monkey shoulder is hot right now. It's something
Right.
you're seeing around you. It's something that now the question is, how can monkey shoulder keep this up? And
Yeah.
what is it doing or not doing? Right, which is helping this notion. Probably if you saw monkey shoulder everywhere, if you were bombarded with it in terms of branding or direct sort of, maybe it would have turned you off.
It will. And now that you said this about Absolute, I shudder at the thought of monkey shoulder tomorrow launching a pepper flavored version. Right? so that would be it. So that's great. I love Absolute as an example as well. But there's this other phenomenon which is equally fascinated me over the years, which is the phenomenon that everybody who's ever had a glass of alcohol in this country is familiar with, which is the phenomenon of Old Monk.
Right.
Right. It's a brand that originated in Ghaziabad. Is that right? Somewhere in the mid 50s, something like that.
Okay.
Right? What is your take on that brand?
I think my take is nostalgia.
Yeah.
So earlier when, I mean, if I go back 7 years or 8 years, there was this whole thing in alcohol, whenever we used to make this was a very typical pyramid in the presentation, that it was called the journey of how consumers get into alcohol and how they move up price points gradually, and how you have to have a product at each sort of price point, or you're built across the sort of ladder. And everybody used to say that your first drink is Old Monk. You sort of start drinking with Old Monk, right? And then you graduate to like a Scotch or whatever, cognac, depends on what.
Is that still the case? I mean, that used to be the case when I was in college.
That's what I'm saying. That was 7-8 years back. That was still a part of, the way we used to look at marketing for alcohol. And the brand that was what you start with, especially in the North, was Old Monk. So you started drinking with Old Monk. Imagine the nostalgia, imagine the sheer number of people who started their drinking journey with this product.
I know. Yeah.
And, it's that has had a very huge role to play in how it's become like this iconic brand, because Mohan Meekins has never gone out of their way to promote Old Monk, or in fact there's a short supply of Old Monk at any given point. You'll find retailers complaining that the supply is not good and it's not very easily available everywhere. So
do they make anything else besides Old Monk?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
they do.
Wow. Okay.
I'm not aware, because I think they're smaller brands, but I'm not very sure what they are. But Old Monk is definitely their flagship brand.
Like how? Yeah.
So there's also Old Monk White Rum. There's also Gold Rum of Old Monk.
Shut up.
Yeah, there's White Rum also.
What blasphemy! Who makes Old Monk White Rum?
It's there. It's used as a pouring brand for many bars.
Oh wow! Okay, I've never encountered one.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm not.
But you never go up to the bar and say, "Hey, what are you putting in my mojito? Are you putting?" You just assume maybe they're putting a Bacardi, but they do put other brands.
Now that you mention it, I've never asked that question. Yeah. But what you just said, and I know that you're fresh off a lecture you had given on marketing to the millennials, right? Was it in Delhi?
Yes.
Great. So. Is Old Monk still the first drink of the millennials, or is that moved on from there?
I think it's moved on from there. Because how we encounter alcohol, the whole atmosphere around it is changing, especially in the urban situation. A lot of people start with buying a miniature of a brand that they like. So you would never imagine it, but you'll actually find somebody who's 20, 21 years old picking up a miniature of a Chivas and drinking that. So it really, it's become very, and also weddings are one big place where people, have a full bar, and, it's really how they encounter, how they start drinking. And I don't think they go with what is the most cheapest thing available, or what is the most, there's so much of global sort of influence now. That everybody knows what are the global brands, and everybody wants a piece of that rather than try something else. So that is changing. But there are hardcore Old Monk fans who drink Old Monk because they like to drink Old Monk.
Right. And I'm assuming they've never spent a rupee on marketing, have they?
I don't think so. Besides packaging, they've done some pretty unique bottles, because there's the Legend one, which is in the shape of the monk.
Yes.
And they've done some pretty creative things when it comes to packaging. But
has it worked for them? I found
absolutely
them hideous.
Absolutely, it works.
It works.
I know people who collect those, so it works like a charm.
Yeah. I still prefer the old classic, old
the
monk
mosaic
bottle.
sort of bottle.
Yeah. I loved it. Yeah, still do. So that's on rum. And I also recently read, and I did not know this, that India is the largest consumer of Scotch whiskey.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That is right.
Wow. Okay. So, how did we get there? Have we always been a whiskey drinking nation?
We have always been a whiskey drinking nation because of the Brits. They had something to do with leaving behind the love.
I thought they drink Pimm's. No, my bad. Yeah.
But so yes, India does consume a lot of Scotch, because a lot of Scotch also goes into the local whiskies that we produce here. So there is some amount of Scotch that that are used in making of Indian brands as well, which is why Scotch as a bulk sort of product also gets massively imported into India. So there's a lot of, there's a massive demand. Whiskey is the number one category, followed by rum, and then followed by brandy.
But I'm assuming, just so me and the listeners understand this right, this statistic is more for the blended Scotch, right? It doesn't include really the single malt variety.
No,
as well.
It
right?
doesn't include the single malt variety. No,
okay, cool.
But as a whole, you could of course say it's Scotch whiskey.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So we're fundamentally a whiskey drinking country.
Yeah.
And the only exception being, again, what I understand from the stats is South India was, and continues to be a fairly large brandy drinking population.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense to me because I was born and raised in Chennai.
Right.
And given that we have 4 seasons.
Right.
There's summer, and then it's hot. And then it's extremely hot. And then, are you kidding with me? Hot. So the last thing that ever occurred to me as a beverage is brandy. Right? What is this South India brandy connection?
I think it's always been there. I don't know if it's a colonial thing or historically, that part has been. But one thing about spirits, which a lot of people forget, is that it's a lot like food. And it's very regional. It's very driven by, what's big in that region. So if you go to France, everybody's talking about cognacs and champagnes and, it's their local, flavor. It's what works there. Or tequila, for example. So there's always a particular taste, food, culture, and how a spirit is a part of that. There is no Nike, Adidas, Reebok in the world of spirits.
Right.
The local spirits actually have the largest share of sales in any part of the world. When you think about these imported brands, they've sort of made their way across the world, but that doesn't mean that they are the largest selling.
So you're saying that there is no national leader when it comes to, there's no Amitabh Bachchan when it comes to alcohol brands, right? So
yeah.
There are just Kamal Hassans and Rajinikanths.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So by far, is there any statistic that tells us which is the largest consumed brand overall in India?
I'm sure there is, but I don't know. I don't know what it is.
I want to say it's McDowell's, but that's something that we should check.
Yeah.
What we do have stats for is I looked up where we are going as a industry when it comes to alcohol. And I think we are by 2022 going to be a country that consumes 6.8 billion liters of alcohol in a year.
Right.
And apparently we are moving at about 8 to 10% CAGR.
Yeah.
Year on year. So that's would you say those are healthy numbers?
Yeah, those are healthy numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating to me in this is if I look up the kind of alcohol that is actually growing faster than the others, apparently wine and vodka are the fastest growing beverages, right? Both roughly around 21-22% each.
True.
Right?
True.
And wine is a fairly late entrant into the Indian scene, isn't it?
Not really.
Have you always had wine?
Yeah, wine has always been around, I think.
So let me put it this way. I think, growing up, the only wine that I could see in South India was, I think there was a brand called Golconda.
Okay.
Which was just not very good, but we all gotten used to it and then started loving it at some point in life. But yeah, besides that, I've never seen the influence of so many brands, both domestic as well as international. And at least as a consumer, for me, this has always been the last 10 years or so.
Right.
Where was the tipping point for wine in India?
I think ever since Sula and Grover and all these brands, they've done a good job. They've sort of made wine available at a very affordable price across pack sizes. So you've got 200 mls, 500 mls. You've got very nice smallish bottles of wine as well. Also, there's a global sort of awareness which has sort of crept in around wine. There's a lot of excitement around sparkling wine. and Prosecco is like a massive trend in the UK,
Right.
which I suspect will hit
Infect India soon.
pretty soon. And the problem with wine is that it's sort of been thought that it's more of a woman's drink, and the occasion for wine has not very clearly been spelt out. Like you've always had whiskey advertisements saying, 8 p.m. if you remember the Radico ad, 8 baje you sit down and you put your differences aside and you have a drink. So there's always been this whole community and communication which has been very clearly an occasion which has been created for whiskey. It's like really your after work stress buster with your friends kind of guy thing to do. But wine hasn't
We actually
really
had a whiskey brand called 8 p.m., right?
Yeah, there is a whiskey brand.
There's still
Radico.
one.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking
all
about.
right. Yeah.
So, but with wine, I think there hasn't been a very clear campaign or communication or when to drink it or who to drink it with. And it's sort of hasn't been able to really create that occasion for itself, which is an interesting challenge. And I think in times to come, it will be addressed. And a lot of people are choosing wine because they consider it to be healthier than mixing it with, sugary mixers. I think it's better to have wine through the day, or also drinking it with their food. So there's a lot of opportunity for wine actually to make a name for itself and to create, a very a good
more
plan.
engaged
Yeah,
audience.
more engaged audience.
But I know that you mentioned it. I think I don't recall any single wine commercial. I think the only
Neither
one
do
I
I.
recall is Agassi as Jacobs Creek's ambassador. I think during probably Australian Open or something like that.
Okay.
Which is a Pernod Ricard
Right.
brand. I think beyond that, yeah. So all the startups that you mentioned, Fratelli, Grover,
Yeah.
Sula, etc.
Like Fratelli is doing a good job. Like if you taste their wine, it's actually very good wine. Some of their wines are, off late, I think their quality is really improved, and they're doing a good job. There's another small winery called York, which is also doing really good wine.
They're much more
very
affordable.
Very
Yeah,
affordable, in fact. So there is a massive case for wines out of India, which are being, which
I
can
believe
go the
so,
Amrut way, and be
Yeah,
known for how good they are.
Yeah, in fact, I think probably one of my favorite wine brands, along with some of the Fratellis out there, is Big Banyan.
Right.
Which is more, I think, a Bangalore, Goan, Bombay
Right.
brand. It has never really made it to
it's
North
part
America.
of John.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it the question of marketing budgets? Is that why I have never seen a Sula ad? Or is activation a much more lucrative medium for a brand like that?
See, I think that ATL has been missing from these. It is definitely very expensive to go in an ATL sort of direction. Of course, the surrogate and the internal rules also make it very difficult for you to do those kind of things. So you only see, the Diageos and the Pernots really doing an ATL sort of campaign. It is an expensive proposition. So that could be a massive reason why wine brands have, and obviously they don't have the kind of volume in sales that a major category like whiskey or rum enjoy. So
does it also explain why some of the larger conglomerates, I don't really see them getting into wine as much as the startups in India? Do they still look at it as a very nascent market in India?
Yeah, probably the numbers are not that attractive. Although somebody who's taken a big leap in it would be LVMH, Moët Hennessy, where they're doing Chandon, in India, and they clocked decent numbers initially. I don't know how they're doing now.
And Chandon is a champagne, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So for them to have with sparkling wine, because it's being locally produced, so they can't call it a champagne.
Right. Yeah.
So there has been an attempt to sort of do something there in that space, but I don't think the numbers are so big, although they might be growing at a smaller base.
Right.
But
that reminds me of another podcast I was listening to, which spoke about the history of wine, and I did not know this. Apparently, the origin of wine is in present day Iran.
Okay.
Where it was first discovered.
Right.
That you could make a beverage out of grapes this way.
Yeah.
And it is interesting. Do you know what the first known utility of wine was?
What?
Take a wild guess. It's apparently, so this is near the Euphrates Tigris thing, and the concept of potable water doesn't really exist, or it's not as easy to have access to it. So they use wine to mix with seawater to make it drinkable.
Okay.
Right? Because wine, I guess, also acts as a disinfectant.
Okay.
And I think then from there, it sort of makes its way to Cyprus, and there is a ship crash, and the guys in Cyprus suddenly find themselves in the middle of many casks of wine.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting story. And I'm also, understanding that wine, at least its journey in Europe has been, it has also been a very classy drink.
Yeah.
In the sense, it's not for the proletariat, so to say. It's not for the working class. It has always been for the middle class or the nobles.
Right.
And the working class drink has always been beer.
Right.
Isn't it? Right. So, which takes me to beer in India.
Right.
And for too long been a single or a two brand market up until fairly recently.
Yeah.
Right? Is there any reason why? And I see a lot of changes happening now. As we speak, I think there are at least 3 or 4
We're not
different.
a two-brand market.
I'm saying for the longest time.
Yeah.
We've always, it's always been Kingfisher and
those have advertised.
a bunch of smaller
but
brands,
there have
right?
been a lot of brands, in fact, and still continue to exist. Like you have in Chennai, you've got all these big, you've got that MGM.
You have the Kalyani Black Label.
Yeah, you've got so many local.
Hayward's.
Yeah, you've got so many local bottlers and manufacturers, like your distilleries and breweries, local ones.
No, sorry. What I meant is, at any point in time when I go to a bar in Chennai or anywhere in the country, they always have just 2 kinds of beer. At least that it used to be the way. Until 4 years back, right?
Yeah.
But now we're seeing a lot of change there, isn't it?
True.
We now have 2 or 3 different Delhi beers.
Yeah. A whole bunch of them, yeah.
So White Rhino,
Simba, you've got Bira, you've got
Bira,
so many brands which have come in. So beer is... I think that the whole microbrewery culture also led to a lot of people trying beer.
Right.
Because I think the first time I had beer, which I liked, was at a bar called Downtown in Gurgaon. I mean, I just always never really liked beer because, lager was not my thing.
Okay.
So it was only after trying some wheat beer that I thought that it was nice. And I think a lot of people started drinking wheat beer thanks to all the microbreweries. And also there was a massive amount of imported beer in the market, like Wine Stefano and Leffe and all these brands. Hoegaarden did a massive promotion across bars. You had Hoegaarden glasses, you had merchandise, you had whatever. So I think a lot of sampling took place, and anytime there are a lot of players in the market or in a particular category, it leads to growth and expansion of that particular segment, because a lot of customers start trying it, and you end up recruiting a lot of customers from different categories of spirits into it. And now beer has become less of a seasonal thing, because earlier there used to be a very definite beer season. And then after the summer it was gone, and then it was like time for whiskey and rum. But now I see that beer is practically an all year sort of a thing, and people are drinking beer in the winter, people are drinking beer in the summer. And that's happened because of so much of interest and so much of, players in the segment.
And Gurgaon especially, right? I don't know how just over
Delhi
the last
still
3
hasn't
years...
gotten that license.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So Delhi doesn't have a license for craft beer?
For microbreweries.
Oh, okay. So that's why we have suddenly become the microbrewery capital of India in Gurgaon.
Yeah, in Gurgaon.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. But one thing I've never also understood is the Indian pale ale scene in India. Firstly, after a long time, I realized that the India in IPA does not refer to India, the country.
Yeah.
But the fact, and correct me if I'm wrong, that I think a Bob brewery in London or near London used to manufacture it, and that used to be near the East India docks.
Okay.
And apparently that's how it got its name,
Okay.
IPA. So
Yeah.
for the longest time I thought,
Honestly, I don't know the history
Yeah.
of IPA, so
I found this fascinating, and
Yeah.
IPA is my favorite kind
yeah.
of beer.
Yeah, okay.
And I feel it's very Indian in its taste.
Okay.
It has character, and it's also not really stoutish that
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
But we never really had an
Yeah.
Indian IPA brand, do we?
So Bira has an IPA.
Okay. Yeah, that's something that they've just launched
They've just
recently,
launched,
isn't it?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So are you excited about that category, beer as a category in India?
Absolutely, it's a category that's growing really fast. Even flavored beers are growing. There's a whole lot of innovation in that sort of segment. So it is an exciting category, no doubt.
On that note, we'll take a very quick break. See you on the other side.
Hello, it's been another great week on IVM Podcast. If you aren't following us on social media, please make sure you do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We've been running this thing for the last few weeks, and we're going to keep doing it. If you are listening to an interesting show that you're enjoying, pause it, take a screenshot, tag us on your Instagram story, and drop us a comment, and we will post that to our own Instagram story. So I want to tell you about a new show that we're launching. It's called Ganatantra. It is hosted by Saryu Natarajan and Alok Prasanna Kumar. They discuss how politics goes beyond intrigue in elections and its implications in everyday life. I think you'll really enjoy that. Also starting on the 4th of February, we're launching a new show with Ambi Parmeshwaran. It's called The Sponge Podcast. He talks about all the invaluable lessons he learned from his 40 years of experience in advertising. Speaking of Ambi, he's also on the Filter Coffee Podcast with Karthik Nagarajan this week. They discuss the importance of data in advertising. It's a really, really insightful conversation, which I think you would enjoy. On The Seen and the Unseen, Amit talks to the legendary Tyler Cowen, writer of the renowned blog Marginal Revolution. They talk about his book Stubborn Attachments and Moral Philosophy. On How to Citizen, we're on Chapter 3, Why We Need a Parliament. Joining Meghnad and Shreyas for this episode is comedian Prashasti Singh. She brings her insight of growing up in Amethi and being witness to political theatre in UP. On the season finale of Echoes of India, we take a roller coaster ride through 600 years of Indian history and get a brief summary of the Gupta Empire. Look out for season 2 coming soon. This has been a great season of that show. If you haven't checked it out, you should check it out from the start. Now you can binge it. Here's what's in store for you on our regional language shows. On the Hindi film show Cinemaya, director Paromita Vora joins Swati to talk about her documentaries, her directorial decisions, and the politics behind camera. On our Marathi podcast Golgappa, Trupti is joined by actress Gitanjali Kulkarni. They talk about the charm of theatre and Gitanjali's NGO initiatives. And with that, let's get you back to your show.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Filter Coffee Podcast, and we're in conversation with Pushpanjali Banerjee. I want to quickly move to your own story. And something that we've not discussed so far in this chat is you come from a family which has built an alcohol brand in this country.
Right.
You run an organization. Can you tell us more about your organization?
Okay. So basically, I work at Kindle Group. And Kindle was basically founded in the UK. It was the holding company for White & Mackay, which was then in a management buyout sold to Mr. Mallya. And White & Mackay had a lot of very famous brands like Dalmore and Isle of Jura and White & Mackay itself was a brand. So basically, initially we had, in Kindle, we basically had a whole lot of brands. We had Piper Heidsieck Champagne, we had Remy Cointreau entire portfolio, we had Absolute, we had Dalmore, we had the entire White & Mackay sort of portfolio. We had Bowls Liqueurs before we got into a joint venture with them to bottle Bowls brandy. So that's really who we were. And we were basically a brand company, and we were selling and we were marketing these brands across the entire region.
Right.
And the entire subcontinent. And then we had a bit of a change of thinking around 2009. We guys got into a joint venture with Bowls, and we decided that we want to own the brands that we sell in this part of the world. And I think a lot of that came after Absolute as a brand, because we built it. India was one of the highest performing markets for Absolute when it was part of VNS Spirits, which was
what time period is this?
This is 2007.
Oh wow!
2006, 2007. And at that time, so India was massively performing for Absolute globally. And Absolute was owned by the government of Sweden. a company called VNS.
I did not know this.
Yeah.
Is it still the case?
No, now it's with now Pernod owns it.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience for me at that time because I was just a trainee. And for me to meet with the Absolut brand team, to work with them, there was a crazy energy that they had. There was the way they used to interpret promotions was so exciting. It had that local flavor, but it was such a globalized take on it. So we had crazy promotions, right? From parrots, picking out tarot cards in pubs to giving a complete makeover to somebody in a bar. Hair and...
Explain to me how the parrot tarot card works for promoting Absolut.
It was amazing. So if you were having a drink and somebody would walk up to you completely, dressed up like one, fortune teller with a parrot, and the parrot would pick out a card which would say something about your personality and what sort of cocktail you should order. And, people were just stunned because that kind of stuff just didn't happen to you, You just didn't go into a bar and have that kind of an experience.
Right.
And it was nothing. It was just, it would, lighten the mood. People would laugh. It would be, it was a really nice way of getting people to order a cocktail or try it out. And then
talking about activations like this, your own training in this area started when you were much, much younger, right?
Yes.
You come from a family of alcohol marketers.
Right. So my
when
father...
When did you start?
Yeah, so I started in my final year of college. Okay. I don't know why, but I had this crazy thing to work and be financially independent. I don't know why.
It's very crazy.
Yeah. Maybe because I've both my parents work, and I don't know what it was. So college first year, I was working with India Today Group. Mm-hmm. College second year, I was with Publicis, which is where I got into the world of advertising, and I really enjoyed it. And I knew that this is something I want to get back to later in my life. And then my final year, I was working full time with Kindal, and I was flying back to give exams, and it was a crazy sort of life. And
so what were you doing at that point?
The first project I was doing was the multi-city events for Absolut, where we had Rajesh Pratap Singh and Kauri Walia, and we had an entire crew who was putting together the look of the Absolut man and the Absolut woman. And the show was called Absolut Attitude. And it was like a multi-city crazy event.
And in this time, you also got to visit a lot of the watering holes in urban India and spend time understanding the customer.
Yes. I did more of that, honestly, once we were closer to launching Bols Brandy. Because it was a completely new segment. So our company believes in the blue ocean strategy. We always like to create opportunities which are new. We like to create categories which are new. We like to, come up with a completely new offering. And Bols Brandy was basically a product of that. You basically had very cheap brandy brands, and then you had cognac, and there was nothing in the middle. And that's why a lot of people would socially drink whiskey, whereas they liked the flavor of brandy, but there was no socially acceptable brandy that one could have.
Okay.
Which is where we created that segment of a premium brandy.
What do you mean by socially acceptable brandy?
So it's like you drink a McDowell's, right? Or you drink it, but that's not something you want to have when your boss is with you, or you're at a corporate event.
It's not classy enough.
It's not classy enough.
Okay.
You'll basically upgrade to something else. You'll probably upgrade to a Blender's Pride or a Royal Challenge or something which is a little more acceptable when you are around, the kind of people where the occasion demands it, and also something you want to maybe not routinely drink but occasionally drink. So in brandy, that opportunity was not there. You had a Mansion House, you had a Honeybee, you had all these brands, but it was either that or it was a Remy XO.
Right.
So there was really nothing in
between.
In between,
yeah.
And to create an in between, you needed to get that quality in. Which is why we imported, brandy. We bottled it here. We had the master, distiller of Bols come oversee every single batch. There was a massive customer education required for them to accept that segment, because all the brandy that was there was very flavor driven. It didn't have grape spirit in it. So when you encounter a natural product, it tastes different. It doesn't burn your throat on the way down. So a lot of customers actually rejected Bols because they said that, this doesn't feel like spirit. It doesn't give me that burn. And, isse to kuch nahi hoga. I'm not going to get a kick out of this. So it was a very, it was uncharted territory. So a lot of research had to go into why people are drinking what they're drinking and whether the proposition would work.
So you got inducted, and probably I'm assuming that's where a lot of your understanding of the Indian consumer for alcohol comes, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And today you're running an agency called Tali.
Yes.
And you continue to work with a lot of alcohol brands and of course other brands as
absolutely.
well. Right?
Yeah.
So what are you most excited about when it comes to alcohol marketing in India? Right? I feel that to me the tipping point when it comes to content marketing for alcohol probably happened with Deurists. Which I thought was a great show. I really don't know how much it did for the brand at all. I think one thing I know for sure is that people were able to pronounce it right after the show.
Yeah.
But after that, I think we've had a series of wonderful initiatives like the Royal Stag, Barrel Select, large short films, or the
that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah,
I think that sets the standard. That's a gold standard for content marketing in India. So how excited are you, and what are you looking forward to in this space?
So I'll tell you what excites me about alcohol marketing is that you're actually appealing to what the customer wants to be, who he is when he's chilling out, when he's trying to get away from. You have to understand the occasion really well. And that was one of the things that once I got into the world of alcohol, it even depressed me a little bit because I could see the kind of pain that people were trying to run away from, by going to shops. If you ever stand at a Theka and you see the way people consume immediately and they'll eat something and, to cut the taste and then get back with their lives. It's almost like a shot in the arm and then you're back to whatever you're doing. So, there's a lot of respect that I develop for people of all strata of society, and I really try to understand because a lot of the messaging for a brand goes there because there is no reason to believe in alcohol. There is no clear-cut brand benefit that you can give somebody. You can't say that you drink this and you get smarter. Or you drink this and your hair will get shiny. You're selling the guy a dream, right? Even he knows it's beyond the point. It's bullshit, right? When I say that, okay, I'm gonna you drink this and you'll get ahead in life, right? The campaign is all about that, but there's no proof, there's no evidence, and mostly you're not getting ahead in life. You're just the more you drink, the more chances are you'll be flat on the floor and you'll feel terrible the next day.
Yeah. But that seems to work for Pan Masala.
That seems to work for Pan Masala. That seems to work for other categories. But that's where I feel we as a generation are changing. There was a time when you could very simply appeal to what a guy or a person wants to be. And you could just pen the whole thing around that, which is why I feel a lot of campaigns in alcohol are very outdated. Because they're again talking to you ki matlab you become this perfect guy, and they're very thaka hua, concept notes that are running around. And the reality is that we are a very depressed generation. We are constantly comparing our lives. We are constantly trying to keep up with the Joneses, and we don't need a brand to stress us out. And I see the brands which are doing well are brands which are made with a lot of passion, which actually have a brand story, which have a technique or a craft attached to it.
Like, for example,
like
the
Monkey
Hendrix
Shoulder
example.
or the Hendrix, or even Bira for that matter.
What is Hendrix doing globally? I think a lot of what you're saying
Right.
is something that Hendrix has internalized globally,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Can you tell all of us what Hendrix is
So
up to?
Hendrix has a very interesting, concept around, oddity and, absurd, that world. It's a very different world, than what is, the reality. And they've also gone, they've talked a lot about cucumber, which has inspired the taste, or which I think is a part of Hendrix gin. And they've celebrated World Cucumber Day, or they've done very interesting sort of things which are not stressful and not pushing you to get somewhere or be this guy. And I feel like those campaigns are working better given how stressed we all are, and how we don't want a product to push us too hard to think of this perfect state. So brands need to go back to the drawing board, and as Seth Godin says, build a purple cow. So he says if you take a drive and you see all the cows on the street, and after a point they're invisible because you stop noticing them because they all look the same.
Yeah.
But if somebody were to show you a purple cow, you'd stop and you'd remark because it was remarkable, right? So it's about creating a product that has the seeds of something unique and something remarkable built inside it, and then propagating that and turning that into a brand message, which is very tuned to the times of today.
Right.
I don't know if that
Yeah.
made sense.
It made sense.
Yeah.
Another brand that's doing some interesting stuff is Katisak, right? I recently saw a video that you guys had done.
Right.
Tell us more about what Katisak is doing.
So with Katisak, we're doing really interesting things where we are basically meeting up with a lot of customers directly in offices and doing pop-up bars there. We've adopted a pretty young approach. Even in the packaging, we've embraced the pop yellow, and we are seeing that it's becoming quite popular with the younger set, which is, I think, quite an achievement for a Scotch whiskey brand, which is 100 rupees more expensive than the leading the brand. So we've done that, and we worked out an interesting content strategy also for Katisak, where we placed it in one of our films with Cocktail Crew India. And Cocktail Crew India is basically our in-house channel. It was basically, we started it for research purposes. We would routinely call bloggers, writers, a lot of the millennials, get insights from them, get them to drink different kinds of spirits, get boys to be
So you'll have these events where they all come and...
Yeah, they come
Right,
over,
okay.
and the whole thing is recorded, and
Nice.
it's great fun. And everybody's, talking about, pop culture references, why they drink a particular drink, why they don't drink it. And I've picked up some lovely insights also, basis those sessions which have happened. So we've released three videos. One was girls try manly drinks, and one was boys try girly drinks.
Right.
And the third one was this icebreaker featuring Devendu Sharma.
There's a fairly funny video where everyone is coming in and then talking about...
Yeah, it's a
Each
typical
person
Delhi house party.
behaves like he's an alcohol brand, right?
Yeah,
Something like that.
yeah.
I found that very interesting.
Right.
In fact, the more I discuss this, I think alcohol is a category that fits content marketing and vice versa. Content marketing
Absolutely.
checks all the boxes for alcohol fairly well, right?
Yeah.
I think in terms of the best work out there, I'd probably put Pictures right at the top in India. I think back at the time, the integration, everything about it was perfect. Isn't it?
Yeah. So in fact, that's true. I think Samar Singh Shekhawat, he was the marketing director there, I think, at that time. And I think they were definitely ahead of the curve. They embraced it as a medium. They came out with so many webisodes, and the good thing was also that they had the kind of money to actually invest in that medium and really, creatively create the kind of content that Pictures has an audience for Pictures. It's not coming there because you're promoted it or whatever. It's managed to make a name for itself, which I think is a really fantastic thing.
I think it was also the way TVF and Arunabh at that point had written the show, right?
Yeah.
With lines like
Absolutely.
etc. Right?
Exactly.
But any other global examples that come to your mind? I, for one, love the what Johnny Walker has done with the White Walker,
right?
Game of Thrones.
That's awesome.
Launch.
What a great way to engage with the younger crowd. It's everybody's been taking pictures of it, and it's led to a lot of user generated content also for Johnny Walker. So I think it's remarkable. Better than putting those statues in every single
but they haven't always enjoyed that sort of a success, right?
Yeah.
They did something with Jane Walker as well, which didn't work. What did they do?
That backfired.
Backfired.
Basically,
Why so?
I think on Women's Day, and I think it was also supporting a cause or something like that. And they released these bottles called Jane Walker, which were supposed to appeal to women. And the problem is that women never thought that Johnny is not for them. They didn't need a Jane Walker to start drinking Johnny.
Johnny's for everyone.
So Johnny was for everyone. So I think they ended up pissing off and alienating women slightly, and there was like a whole online backlash. Little bit like Dove doing those body shape bottles,
right?
Where they did a curvy bottle and a thin bottle and all of that, and women were like, "Hey, I don't need my shower gel or shampoo bottle to look like me. Like that's not what I am. I am not my body only." So I think sometimes it's over-engineered and it just doesn't work out.
Yeah, no, I love the brand, but one of the things I really am not a fan of is the large Johnny Walker statues in really tiny bars.
I know, it's
which
awful.
Restrict space so much.
It's awful. And
So, and then of course, I think another favorite of mine is also what Dos Equis, the beer brand, did with The Most Interesting Man in the World, right? Which was fundamentally more a social media campaign than. Of course, it was launched on television,
right?
I think it had a longer life on social media, right?
Right.
But Push, while all of this is happening,
right?
I'm just thinking, when I look at the stats, the states which are consuming more alcohol than any other states today are Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, Kerala, etc. Right? And TN is up in the top 5 as well.
Right.
In many of these places, especially in TN, the point of sale is something that is controlled by the government, and it's not really appetizing, right? Have you ever been to a Tasmac bar?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been to a Tasmac bar. I've been to a Tasmac shop.
How was that? How did that work out for you?
Yeah, it's sort of going back in time. It's not a great retail experience, I would say.
It almost looks like a prison, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah. So in places like that, right? And of course, having said that, the other extreme of it is Bangalore experience of buying liquor is beautiful.
Drops
right? Madhuloka and the other places. And Delhi is not so bad as well. There's a lot of
Delhi is a mix of public and private. So government and private. So you have both sort of shops in Delhi.
Right. Yeah. And even the garment stores are not as repulsive as as the ones that you see in Chennai, so to say,
true.
Right?
That's true.
How do you ensure brand experience in places like that? Is there any success stories?
So I think we had a pretty good success story with Bowls. We had a massive team in Telangana, in Tamil Nadu. Which was sort of going around the market and making sure that a lot of that the stock was available across depots and across, so availability was like really taken care of. The other thing was also that we did a lot of ATL. We did a lot of events, sort of tie-ups. So we had a very long running relationship with South Scope, which is a leading. It's the film fair basically of the South. It combines four, sort of all the four cinemas of the South in one English magazine, which was a really nice mix run by my friend Aruna. And we did a lot of events with Bowls. Bowls was also a sponsor of the ASL Chennai Open.
Right.
And we used to give away VIP, tickets and passes at clubs, at social clubs. And we had a massive that place is tennis crazy. They love.
We used to, which is why we're really, really pissed when it moved from there to Pune.
And it was great, So bowls became very, and we chose that property because it was an international sort of property happening in India. It was, very premium. It was the right sort of place for bowls to be seen. And we made sure that bowls was seen in those sort of environments only. There were a lot of bars we were not present at, and we chose not to be there. So we really made sure that wherever else besides the retail, of course, the retail experience was not great. But apart from the retail, bowls was available at all the good premium bars, events, you name it. So that really worked for bowls.
Excellent. Yeah. Hey, this has been fun.
Yeah.
And I don't think I can close this episode without you talking about your favorite brand of alcohol when you come back after a long day.
Yeah.
What do you enjoy the most?
Well, I actually like, it really depends on my mood. I have a favorite wine, I have a favorite gin, I have a favorite everything. So I'm not, I don't stick to a particular category. But I would say that after a long day, I like to make an old-fashioned for myself. I use Kati Saak to make it because that's always in my bar. So it's something I can just bank upon, and I make a mean old-fashioned. So yeah, we should probably try it.
With that lovely plug of your fifth client, I think that brings to an end a wonderful show. Good luck to you and Tali. And we'll see you in another episode of Filter Coffee Podcast.
Thank you, Karthik.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was our show. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcasts.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to reach out to me, I am _Karthik. That's Karthik with an H on Twitter. And filter_coffee. That's coffee with a K on Instagram.
Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta. I'm B50 on Twitter. I am the host of Paisa Vaisa, a show that talks money. On my show, I speak to experts from every field of money and finance, from stock markets, equities, debt funds, credit cards, life insurance, every possible area of money and finance that you can think of. We even did an episode on cryptocurrency. I've got fantastic guests from mutual funds to personal finance experts everywhere. Robo-advisory, startups, just name it, we've got it. At Paisa Vaisa, we help you make smart decisions about money. You work hard for money. Now make your money work hard for you. New episodes out every Monday, and you can listen to my show on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you have.
Look! Up in the internet! It's a meme! No! It's a cat video! No! It's the Geek Fruit Podcast!
That's right, we interrupt this riveting broadcast to tell you about our show, The Geek Fruit Podcast, where Tejas, Dinkar and I, Jishnu, talk about everything in pop culture, including DC, Marvel, Star Wars, Netflix, and everything in between.
You know how your friends hate it when you ramble about some nerdy crap and you just want somebody to listen to you? Well, sorry, there's nothing we can do about that, but come listen to us ramble and it'll almost be like the real thing. Kind of.
Listen to new episodes of the Geek Fruit Podcast every Monday and the Geek Fruit Bulletin every Thursday on iTunes, Google Podcasts, the IVM app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy listening, you nerds.